The sympathetic nervous system, at its final connection with the end organ, uses epinephrine and norepinephrine as its neurotransmitters. Okay, epi and norepi. Also called adrenaline and noradrenaline. Okay, different countries call it different things, same thing. What's the difference between these two? Epinephrine is a little more durable than norepinephrine is. They have very similar molecular formulas, but they last different times in the body. Norepi is a classic neurotransmitter. It works for a little while and is destroyed. Epinephrine is like a persistent neurotransmitter. It tends to keep working even after norepinephrine stopped. So on the sympathetic side of things, there's 5 receptor types. Okay, so there's 2 alphas and 3 betas, at least as far as what we're going to learn here. Now they're talking about some additional receptor types. We're going to not learn that right now. All right, so let's look first at the alpha receptors. The alpha receptors, here's our plasma membrane, here's our alpha receptor, norepi or epi, it has either one, will activate this, okay? If this is an alpha 1 receptor, norepi binding to the alpha 1 receptor, going to trigger the release of second messengers. That's going to trigger the release of calcium from the ER, not SR, okay? Because remember, we're not necessarily in a muscle here. So calcium is released from the endoplasmic reticulum. That calcium then causes something to happen in alpha 1, smooth muscle contraction, glandular cell secretions, right? If it's an alpha 2 receptor that was bound, alpha 2s are inhibitory. So we'll get a reduction in cyclic AMP. Remember, cyclic AMP is a second messenger. It makes things happen in the cell. If we reduce cyclic AMP, we inhibit the cell. All right, so alpha 1, stimulatory, alpha 2, inhibitory, right? Norepinephrine, sympathetic receptor. Now, on the beta receptors, there's 3 types here. There's beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. The mechanism is a little different. Here, it's a cyclic AMP direct mechanism. So when epi or norepi binds to this beta receptor, that activates adenylyl cyclase, which turns AMP into cyclic AMP. Now, what happens next is dependent on which receptor type. If it's a beta 1 receptor, that's stimulatory. We find beta 1 receptors on the heart, and their activation causes the heart to beat faster and more vigorously, right? If it's a beta 2 receptor, it's inhibitory again. So beta 2 receptors cause the relaxation of smooth muscle and respiratory passages. They also cause the relaxation of blood vessels going to muscle. Now think, when blood vessels relax, they get bigger, right? Bigger vessels, more blood flow. More blood flow to a muscle, more oxygen, more fuel to that muscle. See? So beta 2 is inhibitory, but it can make additional energy available. And then beta 3 is of these 5 is the most recently described. Beta 3 receptors are found in adipose tissue, okay? And they trigger the release of fatty acids. If you remember that the sympathetic system is all about fight or flight, right? So fighting or fleeing, okay? So stimulation. We get activation of alpha and beta receptors because the mountain lion just jumped out of the tree at us, right? How does this help us? The alpha 1 receptors cause smooth muscle contraction. Your blood pressure goes up, right? Because your vessels contract, that raises the pressure. Now you have more blood force pushing blood around your body so you can fight or flee, right? Alpha 2 receptors are going to inhibit, so we're going to see these, for example, in the digestive tract, because when we're fighting or fleeing, we don't need to be digesting at that period of time. So we're going to stop the GI tract. On the beta side, same molecule, epinephrine from our fight or flight response, right? Cardiac muscle is going to be stimulated to contract harder. Beta 2 receptors are going to dilate respiratory passages so we can get plenty of oxygen in. And it's going to dilate blood vessels to skeletal muscles, so now lots of blood flowing to the muscle, carrying that oxygen, and now you're ready to fight or flee, right? Then beta-3 receptors activated, same process, mountain lion jumping out of the tree. Well, now your muscle tissue has plenty of fuel to fight or flee, right? Because remember, muscle tissue prefers fatty acids for fuel. So all of this does fit together. The 5 receptor types doing 5 different things all still work together for homeostasis to optimize our ability to fight or flee.